Listen, the seed of faith was downloaded into you yesterday and Friday. The seed of faith was downloaded, it was placed in your soil, and you might have already had it trampled all over. There might be nothing left. Now you're a fighter. And you have to know that. So a fighter comes back when they have nothing left. A fighter doesn't recluse and say, I failed it. I mean, I was there Friday and Saturday, and now all of a sudden I'm just hitting the wagon again. And so there's just no point. I mean, when I get my life together, then I'll go back to church. No. You come back to receive more faith and more faith and more faith. You got struck down in the third round. And the way that I see this is you get, anybody watch wrestling? For the love of God, tell me we got some wrestlers here. Sally, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm the only one, whatever. All right, so boxing, any boxers? You've seen enough movies. You get struck down, and then the guy comes to, and you 6, 7, right? And he's like, oh my, that's your position where it's like you're hazy, but you're still getting up and you're going back. It's like watching wrestling. Amazing. What brought me to Jesus was the Brahma Bull of the Rock. I wanted to watch The Rock. And my mom said, if you're going to watch wrestling, she wasn't a believer at this time, but if you're going to watch that mess, you better spend time in the Word. I didn't want to read the Bible. I didn't want to spend time with Jesus, but I wanted to watch wrestling. So if that's what I got to do to play this video game or to play on my tablet or to watch TV for 3 hours, then I guess I'm going to suck it up and I'm going to read the Bible. And then in comes my sister calling me a heathen. You're so dumb. Like, it doesn't even matter. You're just reading it just to read it. You might as well not even try. It was a seed. I didn't know it. I never read the verse until I got to college that his word never returns void. See, I was chasing the rock and got a hold of another rock. Oh, that was good right there, son. Oh, that was good. My point is, you watch these wrestling matches out of Selly, and the guy will be knocked down, jump on him, they're pinning him. 1, 2, and then all of a sudden they start shaking their arm. They do a comeback, and it's like a 5-minute match. It turns into like a 45-minute match because they're right at the end. Here comes a strong arm, and all of a sudden they got this new wave of strength. You're getting a new wave of strength because you're a fighter. You're a fighter. You're a fighter. You got this new wave of strength coming in because you're a fighter. You got bad news last week, but you're getting this new wave of strength coming in. And I want you to know the fight isn't over. There's always going to be other battles that you're going to have to fight. The war has already been won, but you're going to have to go through the process of fighting and seeing the victory in every single battle that you face. You came back because you're a fighter. I'm dedicating a couple of more weeks to talk about this right here. And then we're going to be done, and for 11 months we're not going to talk about faith. I'm dedicating a couple of more weeks to this because you will be strengthened by what you apply, not just by what you are putting in your ears. Faith comes by hearing, the activeness of hearing. I'm applying what I'm hearing. Many parents know the difference between hearing and listening. You're listening and you're applying. You were hearing me, but you weren't listening to me. We're listening to the word. We're applying the word. We're going to talk a lot more about this after several hours, after several weeks. There's just a lot more that we're going to say. The title of my message is Fight Like a Champ. Fight like a champ. Some of you are still fighting the fact that I called you a wuss yesterday. Just fight like a champ. I messed up. I called everybody a wuss, but sorry to those. You're definitely not. But there are moments where we're just weak, and there are moments where we need to hear strong truth to call it what it is. My son fell down yesterday as he was running. And I typically always tell my kids, this is going to happen again. We need to learn how to endure the pain and recognize that it might not hurt as much as you think it hurts. Whether this is good parenting or not, I don't know. We'll figure this out when they're 20 years old and they're seeing a psychiatrist and it wasn't good parenting. But I will tell them which one hurts more. And I'll bring up one of the past when you got burnt by touching a griddle and all of your fingers were burnt, or you falling down and hitting your knee. And immediately, oh, no, that one was a lot worse. Every fight that you're in, it's going to feel like it is the worst fight that you're in. So you surround yourself with people to tell you what it is. You surround yourself with people who will tell you how you're acting and how you're responding. It sounds like you've been spending a lot of time with kids and you're kind of responding a little immature. Guillermo, it sounds like you've been working with a lot of contractors and you're being a little too direct. It goes both ways, right? I get it. I love preaching. I love standing on his word. And after 20 to 30 pages of notes, don't be surprised. I have a little bit more to say. So we're gonna jump in. We're gonna jump into which I would like to say is a strong, not long message, but I've already divided it into two parts. So we spoke yesterday on contracts. We spoke yesterday a little bit on lending and having access, and we spent a lot of time on this, Mariela. And you might remember I said some of this is just going right over your head, and many of you were like, yeah, I don't really know what you're talking about, Guillermo. Well, then after that, later on that night, I get a phone call from an attendee who was at the conference, and they said, Guillermo, everything you said was great, but that piece right there, that spoke right to me. And for 20 minutes, they're going on and on and on about how that specific area that meant nothing to everybody else spoke directly into their life. I love sharing. I love being a vessel, and I love empowering you to do the same. Takia, your word back there, just, man. Let me just talk about my life for a second. Your word back there positioned me to set up a tent in my living room and read books to my kids because my other ones were all out of the house. I don't typically do that. I'm not like a bad father. I just don't think of doing things like that. But that right there just really made my heart get in check because I'm tired. I just been preaching and I'm tired, and what comes to mind is Jesus being tired and him just wanting to get away, but he had compassion on the people and he couldn't just let his tiredness control him. And I don't want my heart to be hard. I want to just sleep. I want to put them to bed at 7 o'clock. I want to just give them an apple because Aubrey left. I don't know what I'm going to feed these kids. So I just want to go driving around 6:10, let them all fall asleep in the car, and then I'll carry them one by one to their bed. Thank you, Takia. I want to encourage you. You have a voice. You have the word of God living through you. So you have to speak what you know to be true. Moms, you got to know you can do this. Dads, you got to know you can do this. Walker, she's crazy, man. I don't know if there's any hope for you. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding. You got to know that you can conquer where you are positioned because the Spirit of God has called you for such a time as this. All right. I gotta jump into this very short message. I want you to turn with me to 1 Samuel chapter 17. 1 Samuel 17. This isn't going to be on the screens, so you don't got to worry about looking on the TV screen. 1 Samuel 17. This is a very familiar passage, at least it should be. If you've seen VeggieTales, then you already have an idea of what's happening here. VeggieTales is helpful. Sparta 300 also gives you a good dynamic of war and tactics, so just kind of keep that, the good scenes in your head. Troy, keep that one, the good scenes in your head. Just we're about to jump into a war tactic here. The Philistines, now mustard. I got to stop right there because this is in mustard and ketchup. This is they're bringing in their armies. Okay, just want to make sure as we're reading the Bible, some of us religious folk read literally, and we think we're talking about actual mustard, and so now we're picturing Philistines covered in yellow gunk to try to be scary, and we're building a theology of a glowworm because they're all coming in yellow. I know. This is how we operate. This is how we operate. Many believers creating theologies and philosophies based on a word, and they just need to go and study the word instead of looking at a YouTube video. Anyways, okay. The Philistines now mustered their faith, now mustered their army for battle. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle. And they camped between Soka in Judah and Eska. They camped between these two towns. Bree, can you throw this picture up there for me? It's gonna pop up there here in a minute on my computer. And you'll go to downloads, and you'll just click on it and bring it into the ProPresenter, and then click on it Either you figure it out or you don't. Don't let it stress you out. But for those of you who are visual, I want you to see this, because the reality is your battle is real. Your fight is real. And you'll read 1 Samuel 17 and you won't think of it as a real fight. You'll think of it as a fight that happened thousands of years ago. You'll think about it as a position that it was somebody else's fight, but you won't understand the principle that you apply to your own fight. No? Nah, well, you're lost anyways. All right, Google it then. The Philistines now mustered their army for battle and camps between these two areas. The reason why I wanted to show you this picture, which is not going through, so you don't got to worry about it, it says that Saul countered by gathering his Israelite troops near the valley of Elah. He countered. This means he sees what is happening, and in his understanding of fighting many battles after battles after battles, he then counters. Men of war, we understand this concept. There is an attacker, and we are now positioning ourselves to defend and to attack. Saul is a fighter. Forget about what you know about him already, because some of you are judgmental and you don't want to live and base your life off of somebody who has done something wrong with the Lord. Okay, well then I'm guilty, so you should just walk out right now. Saul had made wrong decisions, but he's in a battle right now. And he's using his wisdom to be able to fight against the troops that he has encountered. Now, I know we skimmed through this quickly, but the battle is very real. This is real history. Like any other boy, this is real history. Saul is a regular boy who has an encounter with Samuel. Samuel anoints this man. He becomes king, and he starts leading with the appointment, with the anointing of the Lord to then lead Israel to the next battle and to the next battle and to the next battle, because he is their king. Saul, before he became king, was an average person. He was an average person just going to work, and just like each and every one of you. He was just doing what he was called to do. And he has an encounter with Samuel that radically changes his life, and he is then required to fight. He didn't want to fight. Go back and study this in 1 Samuel. He didn't see himself as a fighter. He didn't want to fight. Let me be honest with you. I don't want to pastor and preach. I would much rather be out there building fences for a pastor. I've gone done did that. I enjoy that. I'd rather be back over there trying to help them figure out how to put this picture up there for a pastor, because that right there is what I enjoy to do. I'd much rather be sitting in that chair right over there with everybody else who's lounging out back there, just making fun, cracking jokes at the preacher, or not even listening. I'm just kidding. I know you're listening. I'll tell you, there are things that I would much rather do that I know you would much rather do, but when the Lord calls you to do something, he then activates something inside of you that then moves you to doing what he's called you to do. There was once a time where I didn't want to do what I was doing. There was once a time where I didn't want to do what I was doing. There was once a time where I didn't want to do what I was doing. There is a time right now where you don't want to work where you're working, where you don't want to go through the season that you're going through, where you don't want to experience what you are going through. There once was a time where I didn't want to do what I was called to do. But when God calls you and appoints you and anoints you and positions you, it doesn't matter what you think about the circumstance. You embrace it and you live it out with the fight and the strength that he has given you. I bring that up because there was a time that I didn't want to do what I was doing. And my immaturity didn't see what the Lord had already developed within me. My immaturity saw, I'm not a good speaker, I'm not good, I'm unfaithful in my understanding of Scripture. I'm a faithful husband, I'm not saying I'm not unfaithful. I don't have what it takes to do what he's calling me to do. Well, it's because I was a boy. It's because I was immature. It's because my thinking was wrong. It was because my faith was depleted. And Saul is in this same particular spot. You see, Paul tells Timothy, I think I have this verse up there. You can put it on the screen, Christian, and then you can come up here and take a seat with everybody else. Paul tells Timothy to hold on to the faith, to fight for the faith. And in context, he's not talking about staying away from sin. In context, he is talking about fighting against wrong philosophies, a wrong way of thinking, corrupt believers tend to believe everything here and confirm what the Lord has specifically said. Let me just stick to the text for a second, because my passion to see people move in freedom comes at a heavy cost. And I want to be very careful and sensitive that you don't hear aggression, but that you hear the compassion of Jesus being tired of his disciples having little to no faith. I pray that you hear the compassion of Jesus, but the directiveness that offended many when he looked at his drowning disciple and said, "Why are you still with no faith?" That doesn't preach really good. "Oh, poor man, I'm so sorry." He doesn't say any of that. He pulls out Peter and just speaks to the lack of faith that he has. And I'm not saying you have no faith. I'm saying you're in a fight. You're in a fight, and you have to be ready for the fight. Let's just read. So the Philistines and Israelites faced each other on opposite hills, with the valley between them. I want you to picture this in your mind, as there is a valley of Elah. El represents the deity of God. It's God. This word Elah is the goddess. This is a reflection of a pagan territory, which is where they worshipped the trees. That's what we're looking at here. They saw this valley had a lot of what we would consider today pistachio trees. It was a vibrant area of a lot of nutrition. It was a great area to have war because there was plenty of food right there for both sides. So when Paul counters where he's going to position his troops, he is countering with an area that has a lot of provision to be able to feed his warriors. This is a good plan, Saul. Because where the Philistines were is they were setting up in their own hometown. They were fighting a fight in their territory. So Saul counters to fight a fight in an area where there's enough supplies for his army. That's where we are. In verse 4, then Goliath, a Philistine champion from Gath, came out of the Philistine ranks to face the forces of Israel. He was over 9 feet tall. I have conversations with a lot of new believers these days. I'm not against anybody studying God's word and listening to 100% different podcasts. I'll tell my own wife, stop listening to random podcasts. You do whatever you want. But in our home, we're going to filter everything through the word. Don't just Google something. You need to know how to do your research. I'm telling you, the first things that pop up typically is Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses theology when you're searching for something. So the first thing that you look up isn't accurate. We understand that with Wikipedia. I would hope that just because it's on the internet doesn't make it real. But when it was on TV, it was real. Santa Claus. Okay, talk about that one right now. But I just remember that seeing it on TV, that meant that it had to be real. I just want you to know there are some areas in Scripture where it's a gray understanding. Was he 9 feet tall? We're taking a measurement of today, and we're taking a measurement of the past, and we're trying to find clarity of how tall they are today. But our measurements are a little different. So some scholars believe that he was only 6.5 feet tall. Well, that's a big difference, Guillermo. I mean, Elias is almost 6 feet tall. That's not a giant. The emphasis has always been on the giant. The purpose of the text has nothing to do with the giant. That has always been the emphasis. It has nothing to do with the giant. It has nothing to do with your battle. The emphasis of your faith has nothing to do with your battle. It's whether or not you recognize the difference between what God has sent and what man has sent. Whether if it's a small little splinter and you went on MD and realized that you have some disease now that is an autoimmune disease because the first thing that popped up with your symptoms was that you're going to die tomorrow. It doesn't matter how tall he was. I want you to know, as believers in this church, I've studied, I know that he probably wasn't actually 9 feet tall. I got you, okay? He was tall. He wore a bronze helmet, and his bronze coat of mail weighed 125 pounds. He also wore a bronze leg armor, and he carried a bronze javelin on his shoulder. The shaft of his spear was as heavy and thick as a weaver's beam, tipped with an iron spearhead that weighed 15 pounds. He was a big dude. He was an army man, a military man, and he was a champion. We can debate all day long on how tall you thought he was and how tall you think he is, and I don't do that. He's a champion, and the Philistines were okay with him being the only man that fought. That is a lot of confidence from an entire nation that was conquering nation after nation. That would tell me this guy right here has the ability to take down with no issues at all. His armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying a shield. Now, I believe visual aids are super important. So what I did is I created a visual aid. Amaya. Some of you recognize it's just a box because we're too cheap to actually invest in actual props, so you're just going to have to deal with it a little bit. Amaya, come up here. So this is a table box from our new tables that we purchased. All right, Amaya, you grab it right here. A nice little nifty handle. Okay. So relatively, I have a bearer who bears my shield, and I'm the fighter, and I'm Goliath. And your job is to pretty much walk in front of me. Keep going. Yeah. Your job is to protect me. All her job is to literally walk in front of me to stop anything that is coming towards me, so I can walk freely. My confidence is in the one who is holding my shield, because there are firing arrows, and I am on a mission to fight a battle. See, we haven't really gotten to text, and we're learning something from a pagan person. Just want to realize that, okay? Is everybody okay with that? Can we learn something from a pagan person? Is that okay? You learn from Dr. Phil and Oprah all the time. So let me just go ahead and bring this out to the surface. So Goliath, come back this way, because they need to see it all over again, because there wasn't enough wows in this the last time. So the shields bearer walks, and outwardly there are arrows flying out in war, and the job of the shield bearer is to position themselves between the fighter and the actual fight. That is her position. That's all she does. And the way the war tactic goes is, if she goes down, another person's job was to quickly run in front, because of my life as a fighter is so vital that I have to have somebody else carry a bigger shield so that I can be prepared to fight. This is big, because every day we're going out fighting ourselves without the shield. You see, we read Ephesians chapter 6, like, oh yeah, we're supposed to the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit. I don't even know them, and I'm a pastor, but I know where to find them. But I'm seeing the significance of having. He saw the significance of having a shield. The enemy saw the significance of having the position of something in front of him to protect him for the fight. Does that make sense? Yeah, I love it. Go take a seat. You want to take the shield with you? Go ahead. Yeah, take the shield. Yeah. You could take that home with you, but then just give it back to the church, because we'll use that again for sure. We'll use that again. Here his armor bearer walked ahead of him carrying the shield. He's carrying the shield. The armor bearer is 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 doing the protecting, while Goliath is going to be doing the fighting. You're called to fight, and he's called to protect. And he does a phenomenal job at it when you allow him to walk ahead of you. We just don't want him to. We just say, I can fight this battle. I can do this. And I'm telling you, moms and dads, you can, but you're going to get struck with an arrow. Because they're not going to listen that one time. They're going to roll their eyes at you that one time. I know y'all never do. They're going to cut you a new one. They're going to say something. Your boss is going to say something. And if you don't have that shield in front of you, all of those arrows are going to weaken you before you even get to the actual fight. Goliath stood and shouted. Goliath stood and shouted. Now we're just really diving in. See, I knew I wasn't going to finish. We're not even halfway in there. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Goliath stood and shouted a taunt across to the Israelites. Faith comes by hearing, and fear comes by hearing. And so what we see here is Goliath as a fighter doing what he knows he's supposed to do. If I can scare you before you even get to the fight, then I know you are going to be scared. Why are you all coming out to fight? He asked. I am a Philistine champion. You got a title. Excellent. But you are only the servants of Saul. Choose one man to come down here and fight me. The devil will always try to tell you who you are. Because if he can talk you into who you are not, then he has already won the battle. Eve, let me tell you who you really are. That's the reality of where your fight is. Your social media is defining who you are. Your friends are defining who you are. Your platforms are defining who you are. You yourself, since you are a millennial or Generation Z, you have gone on Google to help define who am I really? Am I a 7? Am I a 6? Am I melancholy? Am I phlegmatic? Who am I? Am I a boy? Am I a girl? Somebody, for the love of God, tell me who I am. Google, here is what I think about me. Who am I? Because if the devil can come in and distort who God has called you to be, you are only, well, then he's already won the battle. I want you to know today that the devil has a war tactic. He is a fallen angel, and he has the ability to fight against you and to take you down. He has the ability to do that. What I need you to know is that you have a covenant with God, and he has positioned himself in front of you, and he has said, follow me as I fight and conquer the battles that are set before you. Jesus never told people, walk in front of me as I walk behind you. He said, follow me. Follow me. And what a good minister does is says, follow me as I follow. And that's what Paul said to his people. Follow me as I walk ahead of me while I follow. No. Something goes before us. In every fight, someone has to go before us. He taunts, though the Bible doesn't use the word taunt in the literal translation. It just says that he shouted. He shouted across, but we can read in context the emotion that's back there. He is making fun. He is poking fun of them. He is name calling them. He is like, oh, you're one of those faith people. Oh, yeah. He says, choose a man to come down here and fight. If he kills me, then we will be your slaves. But if I kill him, then you will be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me. Send me a man who will fight. When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were all terrified and deeply shaken. You should be terrified. You should be terrified of your battle if you don't have a relationship with Jesus. You should be terrified of your panic attacks. You should be terrified of your anxiety. You should be terrified. You should be 100% terrified if you are not a believer and follower of Jesus. Because if you are a follower of Jesus, that means you are behind as he is leading you. He says, choose one man to come down here and fight. Well, I already chose a man. I already chose a man to fight. Do you not see him? He's right in front of me. I've already chosen a man. His name is Jesus. Now, David was a son of a man. David was a son of a man named Jesse. I like this word now. This is really good. I can't spend a lot of time preaching on this, but I'm going to have to because this is just too good. The word now is not necessarily a biblical word, but we're just going to talk about this because what this is displaying is that while they're fighting a war in the present, there was somebody else in a different area that was also being called out to rescue these people. Now, what I really like, and we're going to really dive into this, let's just do it. Now David was the son of a man named Jesse, an Ephrathite from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. Jesse was an old man at that time. And he had 8 sons. Jesse had 3 older sons, and it goes on to define the sons. And then it says David was the youngest son, and David had 3 older brothers who stayed in Saul's army. But David went back and forth so he could help his father with the sheep in Bethlehem. So David had a responsibility to take care of the sheep while the brothers were at war. Many of you already know this story. For 40 days, every morning and evening, the Philistines' champion strutted in front of the Israelite army. For 40 days, he positioned himself to build fear among the Israelites. For 40 days, day and night, you are met with what you fight each and every day. For 40 days and 40 nights, you are seeing in the reflection in the mirror what you don't like. Maybe you're seeing a reflection of weight. Maybe you're seeing a reflection of yourself. Maybe you're seeing the reflection of insecurity. Well, I'm seeing something and I don't like it. And so there is a constant battle that is depleting your faith. Just don't have enough anymore. As you and your spouse are brushing your teeth on a side-by-side sink and you're both looking at a mirror and then you're just watching them saying, I just don't even have a fight to fight anymore. For 40 days, every morning and evening, they were met with the same taunting, the same hearing. One day, Jesse said to David, take this basket and roasted grains and these 10 loaves of bread and carry them quickly to your brothers and give these 10 cuts of cheese to their captain. See how your brothers are getting along and bring back a report and how they're doing. So David's brothers went to see Saul and he visited them against the Philistines. Verse 20, so David left the sheep with another shepherd. David left the sheep with another shepherd. You're in a fight. And 100%, you, moms, dads, husbands, kids, you need to get away. You need to get away and you need to have your time. But your room still needs to be cleaned. That's what we tell our kids. You want to go to grandma's house? That's great. Clean up your room, and then you can go. Parents, we don't just leave our kids because we're too tired. You don't just, well, I just got to get out of this house. That's excellent. But there are some responsibilities that we got to take care of before we decide to jet. David left the sheep with another shepherd. He set out early the next morning with the gifts as Jesse had directed him. He arrived at the camp just as the Israelite army battlefield with shouts, battle cries. Soon the Israelites and the Philistine forces stood facing each other again, army against army for 40 days and 40 nights. They're coming up, they're taunting, they're saying things, negative things about them. David left his things with the keeper of supplies and hurried out to the ranks to greet his brothers. Verse 23. After he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, came out from the Philistine ranks. Then David heard him shout as usual to the army of Israel. I stopped because I'm always perplexed of how surprised the believers get when the giant does the same thing that he's been doing for the past 40 days. It's not a surprise to me. It's not a surprise that you got termites. It's not a surprise that the devil tries to come in to steal, kill, and destroy when everything is going great. It's not a surprise that you're going to walk out there and your check engine light's going to come on right after you realize you only have $5 left in the bank account. It's no surprise that you're going to get your finances together, you're on cloud 7 and super excited, and all of a sudden you need 4 new tires. It doesn't make any sense, Guillermo. I don't understand. I completely understand. Because the devil is looking to steal, kill, and destroy, and he's doing the same thing each and every day. He's just run out of new things, and it's just repetition. And the Lord has been good and faithful the entire time. And it's whether or not you see that while you are fighting a battle, he has already provided the answer. It's just over there. For 40 days and for 40 nights, they're met with a giant. That God had already delivered the Savior for their battle years before they ever encountered the fight with Goliath. We're going to see that here in the text, and we're not going to have time today because I'm going to go ahead and close. But what I want you to realize is that they're met face to face with Goliath. The entire Israelite army is, and they're worried, and they're depleted, and they're scared, and the whole time, God, year after year after year, has been prepping David to come fight this battle. I'm a strong believer that what you are going through right now, you have already been given everything you need to live it out. I believe that because that's what 1 Peter says. I do apply the whole Bible to my life, by the way. I'm a believer that what you are going through right now won't sink you, won't end you, and you will end up on top if you fight and see it through. I mentioned this, phenomenal. Go back and listen to it, but I'm going to bring it back to your head. If he knows that you're going to go down in the 10th round, he'll just push you to the 10th and then shove you over. He knows what he's doing, and you need to know what you are doing. He knows what he's doing, and you need to know what you are doing. In 2 minutes, I just want to highlight my point of this message. David has a good listening ear, and he's recognizing that there is a reward for taking down Goliath. That's good. He wants to know what that reward is. So he asks one person, they say it. He asks somebody else, they say it. David is confident that he could take down Goliath. So what he's wanting to do is confirm, am I hearing this right? Like literally, like this is a reward for doing it? Is it that easy? Is it honestly that easy to be able to buy a house? Is it that easy to pay off debt? Is it really that easy? I just have to go to work and spend less than I actually make? It's really that. Hold on, let me think about this for a second. You're telling me that if I go to the gym Monday through Friday for an hour and eat healthy, my biceps will be as big as his. Wait. You're telling me, I've been working on my glutes. You're telling me that what I have to do are like wall sits every day, and then naturally my. Wait, let me get this straight. You're telling me that all I have to do to make it cool in here is to go to that thermostat? This entire time I've been praying for it. Hold on, let me get I need to keep going because some of you aren't getting this. You're telling me that in order for my phone to come back on, I have to connect this cable to my phone and then to the wall? You're telling me that in order for me to feel better, I am going to need to eat and sleep? That's David's position. Let me get this straight. All we have to do is take down this Philistine giant and you get this reward? Surely that's not right. That can't be right. Verse 27, the men gave David the same reply. Yes, that is the reward for killing the giant. There is a reward for the fight of faith. I want to confirm this real fast. You don't have to do anything to receive God's love. Unconditional, you automatically are loved by the Lord. Okay? Whether you love him is your choice, but he loves you regardless. You are saved by grace alone. You don't have to do anything but call on the name of the Lord. So I guess you have to do that one thing, and then you will be saved. But in order to receive the rewards, you then have to live by faith. Hebrews 11:6 says, it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists, and he rewards those. I don't like this verse because I feel like, we should all just receive all our portions, whether we do something or not, and I don't actually think that. I believe everybody's do what they put in, but welcome to our secular common thought. God says he will reward based on how you seek him. And the rewards are based on your circumstance and your faith. For David, he needed more accuracy. For Moses, his reward was better confidence and communication. For Abraham, his reward was reassurance. For you will have a reward for your faith. And I don't believe that it's the bonus check. I don't believe it's a stimulus check. That's prosperity. I think he moves in that way, but I think there's something greater that he's developing inside of you. I believe the reward of faith happens on the inside. The reward of faith happens on the inside. For those who seek him and live righteously according to Matthew 6:33, your faith will naturally grow. Your faith will naturally grow. You can't live life around us and not grow in your faith. We're not growing in our immaturity. So then people who don't want to grow with us don't hang out with us anymore. We're not growing in our sin. I'm not growing in bad language, so people who have bad language stop hanging out with me. I'm not growing in looking at images that I shouldn't look at, so I stop hanging out with people who are struggling that way. We're growing in our faith. We've always been growing in our faith. So when you hang out with us, you're going to grow in your faith. Because faith attracts faith. And fear attracts fear. And we're following Jesus. And as he is leading us, we're saying, hey, come follow us. But you're not following Guillermo and Aubrey. You're following Jesus, who is walking ahead of us. As a person of faith, you will still have to water the seed during the drought. You're still going to have to trim limbs. You will do all those things, right? And then a hurricane will come and knock down a big old branch onto your house, flooding the house inside, because during this random storm, you'll have to then trim, and you'll have to pull back, and you'll have to prepare, and you'll have to cover for the winter, and you'll have to do all this work, because faith doesn't come naturally. Faith is a fight. Faith is a fight. God is actively building and developing you to live in faith. The question is, are you earnestly seeking him to do it? There's just so much that I got to share. Y'all stand. There's just so much.